against major trading currencies deteriorated.
The council also expressed concern of the 2022 flood in the respective states. Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello hinted that the federal government would soon release funds to states affected by floods, while the next secretariat would embark on an on-the-spot visit to the communities.
Climate change is a reality. NEC recognized that, Nigerians recognize that has come to stay. What are states doing to mitigate against the effect? Every state is affected. And let me tell you, before any palliative or before any assistance
stands at 115.176 billion naira.
President Bola Tinubu has said education is Nigeria's foremost tool against poverty. The president also noted that his administration remains determined to embrace the prospect of digital economy and telecommunications, which he described as the future. Tinubu, who received a delegation from global tech giant Google, said his administration would leverage digital technology to create Nigeria's desired socio-economic progress that is necessary to transform society. He called on Google to partner with the government on the use of data in the public sector to enhance service delivery. In a bid to create a forum for dialogue towards resolving issues surrounding the petrol subsidy removal across the states, the National Economic Council, NEC, has constituted a ad hoc committee to engage with the leadership of labor unions. The decision was reached at the 135th meeting of NEC, chaired by the Vice President, Kashif Shettima, in Abuja. Our correspondent completes the report.
The committee comprises the Nigeria Governors Forum Chairman Abdurrahman Abdulrazak, Governor of Anambra State, Chukwuma Soludo, Chairman of Progressive Governors Forum Hope Uzodima of Imo State, PDP Governors Forum Chairman Bala Muhammad of Bauchi State, and Abia State Governor Alex Oti. According to Governor Zulum of Borno State, the Vice President charged the committee to liaise with the leadership of labor unions in the country to find a way forward on the emerging issues and the interests of the nation.
The Council has also tasked the state to dialogue with the labor unions leadership. A committee made up of Anambra State Governor, NGF Chairman, and others have been nominated to interface with labor. The most important thing that the Council has taken note is that all these palliatives that are being mentioned now are temporary solutions. Council has decided to invest on medium and longer term sustainable solutions that will ensure availability of food and non-food items in Nigeria, especially investing in commercial agriculture and also investing in irrigated agriculture. NEC is calling on Nigerians and indeed labor to become law-abiding, as the president is determined to address the issues at hand.
While noting various interventions of the federal government across the country, the council urged states to upscale the distribution of palliatives towards alleviating the suffering of citizens, especially vulnerable groups.
In the meantime, the organized labor has knocked the federal government for releasing a 180 billion naira palliative package to states to cushion the impact of the fuel subsidy removal. The Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC) insisted that the government could not be trusted, noting that politicians and not the poor will benefit from the 5 billion naira largesse given to each state government for disbursements to citizens. The federal government had on Thursday announced 5 billion naira palliative for each state of the federation and 180 trucks of rice as part of measures to assuage the pains of the subsidy removal. The policy, which led to sharp and multiple increases in fuel pump prices, has driven up the prices of goods and services, pushing millions of Nigerians into poverty and worsening the socio-economic situation in the country. The development also triggered nationwide protests by organized labor, which insisted on the repair of refineries as a precondition for the subsidy withdrawal. President Bola Tinubu will on Monday, August 21, 2023, swear in his ministers. The event is billed to hold at the State House Conference, Aso Villa in Abuja by 10 a.m. A statement on Wednesday by the Director Information Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Willie Bassi, says the ministers are allowed to come with 2 guests each. The scheduled arraignment of the suspended Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele, at the Federal Capital Territory High Court in Abuja on allegation bordering on 6.9 billion naira procurement fraud has been stalled due to the absence of second defendant Saadu Yaro. Global TV's Sharon Ajay reports that counsel to the federal government and Director of Public Prosecution, DPP of the Federation, Mohammed Abubakar, told Justice Hamza Muazu that Sadat Yaro took ill in the morning, hence unable to make it to court.
Abubakar apologized to the court and applied for a new date for arraignment. The request for an adjournment was not opposed by Emefiele's counsel, Akinlolu Kehinde, and the counsel of Sadiatu Yaro. Justice Mahazu subsequently fixed August 23rd for the arraignment. Emefiele, who entered the court with white kaftan, made frantic efforts to evade cameramen in and outside the court. While the prosecution counsel declined interview, defense counsel provided insight of what happened in the court.
The charge was filed in Lagos. In the wisdom of the complainant, the federal government of Nigeria, they decided to withdraw that charge. A ruling is being expected this morning before the Federal High Court in Lagos in respect of that application to withdraw that charge. Now they brought another charge before the FCT High Court, a 20-count charge against the same person, against the same embattled governor of the central bank, and one other person. Now, the matter was meant for arraignment this morning, but 2 things played out, which clearly showed that the complainant itself was not ready for the arraignment. The second defendant was not made available. The second defendant was not in court. And it is right that all the defendants in a charge must be present to take their plea. And consequently, the complainant on its own requested for an adjournment for the arraignment to be done at a later date. And so we didn't oppose that application. The arraignment will now come up on Wednesday, 23rd of this month, Wednesday 23rd.
Operative of the Department of State Service, DSS, who brought Emefiele to court under a heavy watertight security to avoid security breaches, returned him to their custody immediately after the proceedings.
In a related development, Justice Nicholas Owebo of the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos yesterday noted that the federal government has shown signs of not being law-abiding and has no respect for the court. The judge made the pronouncement while striking out the firearm possession charge against the suspended Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele. The charge was brought against Emefiele by Department of State Services, DSS. Justice Owebo struck out the charge for want of diligent prosecution, noting that the federal government has shown signs of not being law-abiding and had no respect for the courts. Meanwhile, the scheduled arraignment of Emefiele on a fresh 20-count charge was yesterday stalled following the absence of one of the defendants in the case. Though Emefiele was brought to court by DSS, who was still holding on to him before an Abuja High Court at Maitama to enter his plea to the fresh charge against him, the court was told by the DSS that the second defendant was unavailable. The military high command says no fewer than 3 officers, 22 soldiers were killed in Niger State, while 7 were wounded in action by terrorists. Major General Edward Buba, Director of Defense Media Operations, revealed this at the Defense Headquarters while keeping journalists abreast with the operational activities of the Nigerian military in the theater of operation in Abuja. Kikelama Okere was there for Global TV.
Major General Edward Buba stated that the Nigerian Air Force helicopter that crashed in Shiroro area of Niger State had gone to the scene to evacuate the victims before it crashed. He, however, vowed that no group could attack its troops and go scot-free, adding that the 14 previously killed soldiers were in the jet during the crash.
Discover what caused the plane crash. After that, you can be sure that that will be communicated to all of us. To use superior military force to eliminate any group or groups that constitute a threat to the safety of citizens and armed forces alike. Lastly, I will say that no group will strike armed troops without injurious consequences.
The Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigerian Air Force, Air Commodore Edward Gabor, called on those aiding and abetting the propaganda tendencies of terrorists by spreading the video of the alleged crashed site with gory pictures of dead military personnel to stop, saying such action can demoralize the troops.
The Nigerian Armed Forces have continued to be very open about its operations, and athletes in military operations are nothing for any military organization to be ashamed of. We're fighting an insurgency, and if anybody thinks insurgency is something that is tackled in such an easy way, then you should go back to the history books and find out how other nations have been facing the same problem. What we see in other countries is the citizens of those countries rallying around their armed forces and supporting them. But when we come back home, it's so unfortunate what we see some of our citizens do. It's as if there is a kind of joy that we derive when the armed forces have this kind of mishaps. What do we get from that? Are we going to be happy for these terrorists to come and, override our communities, take over our communities? Is that what we want? Where is it?
Speaking on the troops' operation, the Director of Defense Media Operations says during the week under review, the military neutralized 28 terrorists, arrested 92, 6 gun runners, 3 kidnappers, 6 collaborators, and 7 perpetrators of oil theft.
Troops also rescued 82 kidnapped hostages and denied oil thieves the estimated value of over 870 million naira. Troops equally recovered 108 weapons and 556 ammunition.
He noted that the ongoing operation is aimed at curtailing the activities of violent extremist groups fomenting insecurity in the country, adding that the troops will continue to respond with overwhelming military force to any group that threatens the safety of citizens and the nation forces. Kikelomo Okeri, Global Television News, Abuja.
Thank you, Kikeloma. You're watching Global Midday News coming to you live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. We're on Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across our social media platforms using @Global TV NG and other handles now showing on your screen. When Midday News returns, the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation and NDIC plans probe of failed banks directors. Details of this and more will be brought to you when we return from this short break. Do stay with us. This is Global Television bringing you live broadcast of the midday news from Nigeria's capital, Abuja, with Uyagumofoibe. The chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owansanoye, says illicit financial flows are draining the country's foreign reserves and revenue. Owansanoye said this on Thursday at a one-day hybrid sensitization workshop on the published guidelines for private sector response to illicit financial flow vulnerabilities in Nigeria, organized by the Commission in Abuja. The Commission's chairman said the illicit financial flows have resulted in exchange rate depreciation, inflation, and increase in cost of servicing external debt. He said, therefore, he has called for diverse measures to tackle the menace in all reforms to improve Nigeria's quest for domestic revenue increase relative to the size of its economy. He gave the assurance that the Commission would continue to focus on practical measures to enhance Nigeria's ability to stem IFFs and reduce capital flight. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has introduced a foreign exchange price verification system designed for importers to have access to forex. The Apex Bank, in a statement from its Trade and Exchange Department on Thursday night, said a price verification report from the portal is now mandatory for all Form M requests while it takes effect from August 21, 2023. The statement says, following the successful conduct of the pilot run and various trainings held with all the banks, the CBN hereby has announced the go-live for the Price Verification System, PVS, while urging all authorized dealers to inform their customers of the developments. The regulator also said any case of infraction would be appropriately sanctioned. The Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, has disclosed plans to probe directors of some failed banks in the country. The managing director of the corporation, Bello Hassan, said this during a capacity-building workshop for law enforcement agencies with the theme Effective Collaboration on the Fight Against Fraud and Financial Malpractices in Banks and Other Related Institutions in Nigeria, held in Lagos on Thursday. The MD, who was represented by Head Legal Department of the NDIC, Henry Foma, said through collaborative efforts, 12 prosecution cases are ongoing at various courts, 25 ongoing investigations with FMIU, 11 with the EFCC, and 5 concluded investigations with the Federal Ministry of Justice for advice and prosecution. While noting that banks were becoming more vulnerable to fraudsters, he said the situation had increased the burden on regulators and supervisors to enhance their operational capacities. The Foreign Affairs Ministry in Germany has thrown its weight behind the European Union sanctions against the Niger Republic military junta. This was disclosed by Annalena Baerbock, Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs in Germany. EU foreign ministers are expected to discuss the Niger situation, including sanctions, at a meeting in Toledo, Spain on August 21, 2023. In comments posted to X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, the Foreign Ministry on Thursday said its Minister Baerbock has held talks with African Union Chair Musa Mohammed, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and other stakeholders about the coup. And time now to turn quickly to sports stories. The Nigeria Professional Football League, NPFL, on Thursday announced a partnership with La Liga, the Spanish league, to train Nigerian players. Gbenga Egbelegbe, the chairman of the league management company LMC, made the announcement at the press conference in Lagos. Consequently, the NPFL inaugurated a technical committee to identify 11 all-best league players at the end of the 2023-2024 league to train and play with the best of La Liga teams. Egbelegbe said the partnership was born out of the need to make the Nigerian league more viable and reward hard work. The Nigerian League is scheduled to kick off September 9 across the country. The technical committee for the All-Stars is headed by Harris Njala as chairman, with Austin Eguavoin, Daniel Amokachi, Godwin Unwa, Deji Omotoyibo, Shegun Agbede, and Mitchell Obi as members. Away from Nigeria now, the International Chess Federation, FIDE, has banned transgender women from competing in its women's events, saying the individual cases would require what it calls further analysis, adding that the decision could take up to 2 years. While the move has been criticized by some players and enthusiasts, the Federation says the imposition of the ban is temporary. Many sports governing bodies have been working on policies towards transgender athletes, but chess does not involve comparable levels of physical activity. However, the FIDE says it wanted to analyze the impact of these policies and did not want to rush the process. It added that the transgender players could still compete in the open section of its tournaments. And that's it on Global TV Media News. We are on StarTimes Channel 276. Kindly follow us across social media platforms using at Global TV NG and other handles you now see on your screen. I'm Uyag Mofwebe, thanking you so specially for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.